Under Plum Lake by Lionel Davidson, 19. My time has come. Soaring in the night. It was the middle of the night. We'd soared so high the lake far below looked no bigger than a plum itself. The smell of raguses everywhere in the purple night. I didn't ever want it to stop. There'd never been anything so beautiful. The pleasure drome hadn't been so beautiful. I was lying on the kite, just gazing below. The moon was over Mount Julius. I was higher than Mount Julius. I could see the snow in the moonlight. And we were still rising. The scented air wafted up from the lake. I could feel the soft gusts trembling each wing under my body. It only needed a touch to correct the wings. We'd gone up first in a dual control kite, and he'd shown me everything. He knew I was nervous, but he said there was nothing to it, and it was true. In just minutes, he'd let me take control myself. You take off under power, nose upward, then a few hundred feet up you level out and feel the air currents underneath and switch off. The air takes you then. Now we were on our own, and he was soaring 20 feet away. There were 50 of us over the lake, the maximum at night. Some were already stunting and spiraling below. The kites flashed like fireflies in the moonlight. Far below, just a few hundred feet off the water, I saw somebody trying a slice. He did it cautiously, but pretty well. He leveled out just at the right moment, and then he was coming up again under power. Dido just laughed. "Some slice," he said scornfully. "I'll have to show him. You stay here. Stabilize now. You remember how." He took me through it, and we both stabilized. It isn't hovering. You lock into position magnetically. You stay in one spot in the air. I felt the breeze on the wings, but it couldn't shift the kite, even fractionally. He destabilized and slipped away, slightly in the air, and hovered a while. I saw him tightening his straps. "Okay," he said. He put the kite on its nose and took off like a bullet. He went so fast I knew he was on full power. Just a few hundred feet below, he went into a slice. It's fantastically dangerous at that height. It's almost lunacy. He put the kite on its side so that he was slicing down like a knife. I saw him spear dangled along the kite like an insect. In that position, you can barely judge distance or direction. He'd explained all this to me, and I'd seen it with power off. You've got practically no control. You can't maneuver the wings. If you're in trouble, you need lightning reactions to snap on power again. And you can be in trouble in an instant. A sudden gust can throw you all over the sky. It can break the kite and snap you in two. That's why they'd all done it so cautiously, and just a few hundred feet over the lake where the air currents were manageable, and they could judge distance. The lunatic was doing it from 2 miles up. And he'd got power off now. I could see the thin knife edge of his kite gave a dangerous twirl every second or two. I could hear it whistling. Far below, the others could too. I saw them swooping out of the way as his kite sliced down through the night, shrieking like a siren. About a mile below, a gust caught him. He spun completely round in the air, twice fluttering like a moth. I could imagine him fighting for the controls. Everything spinning fast round him. It didn't stop him for a moment. He didn't level out. He didn't slow. He got control. He must have snapped on power for a second and continued slicing down. He wasn't going to make it. He'd misjudged. He was going fast, much too fast. He was almost in the water. He was in it. He'd crashed. He'd misjudged and smashed himself in the water. I saw a huge column of spray leap up. And on top of it, there he was. He must have been just a few inches off the water when he snapped on power and leveled out. He'd been within a fraction of an inch of killing himself. I lay on my kite 2 miles up and trembled. He was mad. He was dangerous. I was frightened to touch any of the controls, even accidentally. I lay in the sky and watched him come shooting up. He did a complete victory roll round me and finished upside down exactly above. He locked in position there and looked down at me, grinning. "How was it?" he said. His face was a yard above mine, eyes shining. He was just breathing a bit hard. "It was mad," I said. He laughed and leaned down and rumpled my hair. "It was fun," he said. He unlocked and made a slow semicircle to stabilize beside me. We lay in silence for a while, looking below. All life's fun, he said. It's supposed to be, don't you feel it? Not when it's dangerous, I said. There's no danger, trust me, I said. You don't know what's dangerous. You don't know what it is to be frightened. I won't frighten you, I promise. Do you want to do a couple of rolls now? No, I said. You'll love it. We'll do it gently, he said. He took me through the controls again. The kite was a long triangle. You lay along the spine, strapped on, looking down on either side of the narrow point. The wings were of a thin metal with movable flaps. You controlled them with a rudder bar and a nose stick. The bar steered you left or right, and the stick brought the nose up or down. Beside the controls was a switch panel. The first switch was for the force line, and I'd got it on so I couldn't crash. The next was power with a turnable grip to control the speed. Last was the stabilizer lock. You could lock in any position. You could do it upside down, as he'd just done. You could stand the kite on its nose or tail, and it would stay there. He told me to keep my hands away from it in flight because it stopped you instantly, faster than the brakes in any car. We pulled all switches off and did a slow spiraling descent. He did it carefully, bringing us down gently. Sticks slightly forward to keep the nose down, rudder bars gently to the right. It was the most beautiful, graceful thing. We curved down and down through the purple night. We stopped before we came to the group below. There's nothing to a roll, Barry, he said. The kite does everything. If you're nervous, do it on power. He did one very slowly to show me, and then another. He carefully looped the loop round me. The second time, he locked just as he went into the loop, and stayed there, slanting in the air to show me how he got the controls. There was nothing to it. You pulled the stick pretty far back to go into a steep climb. Just as the kite went vertical, you pulled the stick farther back, which carried it round in a circle. And you were upside down as you came down the circle. You pushed the stick forward to level out, and as you leveled, you pulled it back again. I tried it very cautiously, bracing myself to lock if anything went wrong. Nothing went wrong. I did the most fantastic, gorgeous, incredible roll in the air. The whole world span, and I hung upside down in it and slid down the other side, hooting with joy. I did another. The sky was under me, the glowing lake up in the sky. I just didn't want to stop doing it. But I was doing it on power, slow power, and I knew I'd have to do it without. It was what they were doing below with several fancy tricks. He hovered, carefully watching me. He called out, "Okay, lock," and drifted over and locked beside me. It's the same movement without power, he said. Only you come down faster. You pull back quicker on the stick. If you get confused, go on slow power and lock. He did it himself to show me, calling out all the time. He did it slowly, but still wasn't as slow as before, and then I was doing it myself. He drifted away to give me room, and I unlocked, put the nose up, and started the ascent. When I was vertical, I pulled the stick back farther and immediately flipped over on my back. I slid down the circle fast, and immediately began pushing the stick forward, and even out, and went right up again. The first time I was so petrified I barely knew what I was doing. The second time I began to feel it. There was the breeze in my ears, the wings suddenly alive under me. After that, I went crazy. Every time I flipped, the blood rushed to my head. The lake was where the sky should be, and I let out a great hoot. I slid down the sky and heard myself cackling the way he'd cackled in the toboggan. I was a bird. I had wings. I was flying in the night. It's the thing I remember best. It's the thing I remember best even after my death. And that wasn't far off now. It was there 3 minutes later. It was in the air. And that's the end of the 19th section.